All right.
Hello. What's going on, y'all? It's good to see y'all. Hey, Dan. Hey, Jake.
Hi.
Musse. What's going on, y'all? It's great to see y'all. Welcome to Unicorn Finders. Basically, for those of you who are scrolling through your LinkedIn feed this morning, YouTube feed, whatever, what this is this is a show to highlight unicorns. What our goal is Jake, Dan, and I are friends outside of work. And so we decided to come together. We decided to come together during COVID to have a show to basically leverage our connections to bring voices to companies and individuals and products who are companies and people and products that you haven't heard of. And so really excited today to join. We're joined by Musse from Karat. And so Musse, thanks for hanging out with us this morning.
Of course.
Give the people, aka my mom, and a quick background about just your role at Karat, and then talk about what Karat is. Just kind of set the stage.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Overall, so my name is Musse Giday. I am currently the program manager for Brilliant Black Minds, and currently I have leaning into a lot more of our product development work in relation to our practice interview platform, as well as the scalability of our Brilliant Black Minds initiative, which has been really exciting. And at a high level, what Karat is the world's largest interviewing company. And to put it simply, we conduct technical interviews on behalf of companies hiring software engineers, and overall, we enable them. The problem that we're looking to solve is everybody needs to interview. It is the number one moment of as a bridge to opportunity. And it is no one's job to obsess about that, to live and breathe the interviewing. And that is what we do. And that's why we're in some ways an industry creator, or creating a new frontier of what technical interviewing means with our interviewing cloud platform.
And so I'm curious, just to kind of kick it off, when I hear interviewing, and companies that watch this in the future, like, how does this work? Like, how do y'all, I guess, make money in regards to, like, do companies come to you and be like, hey, like, could a staffing agency come to you? Do only companies, like end companies, come to you? Like, what does your business model look like?
That's a great question. I definitely think we definitely lean into the more enterprise space in your relation to your point about staffing companies versus full organizations or on their own. Simply, the way we make money is that client source, we hire and they pay us to conduct that on a SaaS model. On a SaaS subscription model, essentially, or on a, and they, that is essentially the basis of it. And so really, to your point, I don't believe, to the best of my knowledge, that we ever really work with staffing firms in that way. We're a lot more, when you think about our customer base, it's a lot more startup, it's a lot more tech, digital transformation, and enterprise. So to give you some examples of these, it's like anything from like really hot companies like a Robinhood to some of these Fortune 500 Goliaths like Forbes, American Express in the financial industry. So we really are a lot more focused on the actual organizations and partnering with those organizations to make their hiring process have the highest ROI for them and for their candidates.
So I'm curious, what's the biggest difference Right, because I hear this. I hear staffing, but in a way, it's not staffing because the company still has to provide you with the pipeline, right?
Yes. So it is not really. It's a lot more of. I think of it in a lot of ways as a deep collaboration. What I think that's what makes it different is the deep collaboration at the early phase when you join with us, and the consistency of that calibration over time, and how I think the part of this model that makes it really exciting is that the longer you interview with us, the better we are at understanding your data and being able to infer a lot more optimizations for you, and how we can kind of be really laser focused on making your hiring funnel as high quality as possible, and really making your on-site to offer rate exciting, your performance rate, and helping you dig into things you've never thought of before by virtue of the data. It was like, well, how are we looking out how your sourcing funnel looks? Where are you hiring from? Are you looking in the right places? Let's look at the data and see what that tells us from your top.
So when they get loaded in to the platform, it starts tracking where that source was from. And then you go from like source to passing of the test to offer to hire, and you track that flow, and then you can help.
Yes, and we track that robust analytics in that process as well. And I think what makes us unique is that we also get to benchmark a lot of that across our massive data set, which means we are uniquely positioned as in two ways. One, we are the first technical interviewing cloud that supports this full service. Two, we really have a breadth of understanding across what the market is looking for, and by virtue of having clients across the entire tech and Fortune 500 list or industry. That is analytical power that cannot be that really can't be done simply other than by us at this point. So that unique value prop always gets stronger over time as clients see the fruits of that engagement. And a lot of this is due to companies don't really, like, you run into a multitude of issues in this sense. For example, if you think of it as like you're a startup, you're just entered hyper growth, you got 2 software engineers, you need to get to 100 in 6 months. And you don't know if you're going to be able to do that with the high quality bar that you have for your company to make sure you can sustain growth over time. So that's one case where you would come and that's a capacity issue. You could have that you're trying to create a lot more of a consistent hiring bar and enable that centralization to some degree or standardization to some degree. You also run into essentially as an org, you're being stretched across all verticals. Does your talent team have all the support it needs to really be like getting all these software engineers to get into these loops and etc.? Do your software engineers even want to be in these technical interviews? And is that even in their skill set domain to begin with, outside of the fact that they're software engineers and they're domain experts in that piece? But are they an interviewing expert? And so you start seeing how this lack of having an interview cloud infrastructure really stretches clients into suboptimal, the status quo of technical interviewing. As I'm sure I don't have to elaborate to the folks on this call, where it's very grueling, it's very long-winded, and it's also it's kind of black line.
We quick tangent on that. I don't know if you worked with Don Jones yet over there, but he was a
we were talking about before you jumped on.
Were you? Yeah, I just saw that he went on over there. That's awesome.
So Musse, talk about power content and kind of what y'all's vision is for that.
Yeah, I think so. This is a good example of how we made interviewing our job, is us being kind of at the frontier of this work. So part of what makes Karat really exciting is that we have an entire business vertical that obsesses, to your point about Don, who recently joined to lead that vertical, who obsesses about research and development of interviewing content. And that's from multiple different ranges. One is from just what is the marketplace demand for content? You know, like to give some examples, is mobile's getting really exciting. It's never been more exciting in the marketplace. So that content library grows. And how do we obsess and build the best, highest quality version of that? How do we A/B test that? How do we also make sure? How do we quantify measuring bias and reducing that in our content library? And that involves a lot of technical work on Don's team's part in really creating like a methodology that emphasizes reducing bias at every step and has a check and balance system, essentially.
Are you working towards blinded interviews right now, or working towards blinded testing? I know we've seen a lot of companies that have done a lot more of that on the forefront. We had I can't remember the name of the company right now, but they ended up doing basically no names, no screening. You go through the technical assessment first, you go through the background, and there is an education component as part of there. And then you decide if you want to meet the person beforehand, right?
Yeah, I've definitely seen those. I think there's two things to call out here. One would be that currently we are not on the sourcing side of this work. So our involvement with the candidate is after, after they've entered your ATS, after they've entered your sourcing pipeline. So that kind of mitigates our ability to do any kind of blind resume or
that's true, because it's already in there.
That phase is already happening before us. But I'm glad you asked that, because what is also really cool about Karat is that the interview process itself is like that. Your interview engineer does not know who you are before you get to your interview. They do not get to they get a very limited subset of information about you that is meant to reduce their ability to come into that interview with any form of bias, because we all have our individual biases. It's what's nice about Karat is that we have a system that has a checks and balances at each point that mitigates that and diffuses that to a greater degree. But we do things like that in order to make sure that it's very equitable, and the interview engineer themselves are really they're there to allow the candidate to show the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very critical thing to call out. And that's what makes them, which allows them to be a lot more agnostic in that degree, or like a lot more create a safe environment for the candidate to feel that like they're okay. Like I'm not coming in here with any biases, and the candidate, especially if you're a URM candidate, can feel especially comfortable knowing that we've created an equal playing field.
That makes sense. Do you guys have technical experts? Because one thing that kind of stood out is like, all right. So a company comes to you and says, hey, listen, I mean, they're essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, outsourcing their interview process to y'all. And
I'll let you finish first, but I'll.
Okay. Yeah. So that, and then, so it's like, all right. So did they go like, well, all right, well then who do you have on staff to tech out React developers, or who do you have on do you have a bench of like technical people? How do you sell that to the companies? Right. Cause I mean, if you're going into FANG, companies, I mean, they're going to want to know that you got some pretty high power people probably doing some interviewing. So I guess that's a twofold question. So first off, I guess answer the first side about obviously the technical expertise and whatnot.
Yeah. So to your point, in terms of the technical expertise, what makes interview engineers at Karat are interview engineers who with a depth and breadth of experience. I think on average, when you start looking about who is an interview engineer at Karat, they usually, they fall into, all of them have decorated software engineering backgrounds, and especially from the interviewing lens. So to your point, it's not necessarily a bench, it's more so a community, like to say, or closer to a community of interview engineers that are globally distributed across the world, which adds a lot. And to your point, like how does that add value to the client? It does a lot of things. One, you get to hire. We're reducing frictions to hire. Don't have engineers in my time location. That's not an issue. Candidate wants to interview 24/7. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
Really, there's just a lot of these pieces that always have, without having an interview cloud infrastructure before, have always just added time to that ever so important time to fill metric, and to the on-site to offer metric. So we just erode all those blocks by virtue of having this interview engineering community, and clients feel really excited about that because they see the value of that when we start to engage with them, that they're just really high caliber interview engineers, and we have a very rigorous process for bringing them on, for consistently upskilling or training and developing, and making sure that they're the most high quality interview engineers that you will ever find.
And then the first part of the question, I just went blank for a second. The first part was, are you guys is your pitch, hey, we'll come in and take out all of your hiring, like we'll outsource?
No, I think I'm glad you make that distinction, because it's actually I would say it definitely is not. It's much more a deep entrenched collaboration. So that's why I think that's what makes Karat really unique as well, because it's not, hey, like you want these hires, you cut, and you're gonna just, we'll make it happen. Leave it with us, we'll make it happen. It's a day-to-day collaboration. Hey, let's really calibrate your hiring bar and standardize that, see where that falls. Let's really obsess about what kind of content we really need to be looking at for the kind of roles you're hiring. Is it front end? Is it back end? Is it SD1? Is it SD2? Or are you going all the way to Eng manager? Kind of all that level of deep collaboration, plus the analytical power that we bring to the table with the ability to give you deeper insights about your entire funnel that you would not be able to do otherwise, is what makes it a lot more, which makes it firmly more of a deep partnership that we do with all our organizations, as opposed to a plug and play outsourcing product.
That makes sense. So talk to me about Brilliant Black Minds. Like, where does that come in?
Yeah. So I think Brilliant Black Minds has been one of the most exciting things that we've been working at Karat. And really where it comes in is that as we've done all this work around, we obsess about the technical interview and about this specific funnel. And I think what we really learned early on was that our head of DEI, Portia Kibble-Smith, which I'm sure you met at Render, early on they started seeing how there would be real value to practice interviews in their Black community, just because they saw that there was like, hey, like there's not a lot of folks who get access to this at an early age, or that get access to doing technical interviews. I think, to give you an example, in the end of 2020, we did our first access gap report, which was in line with the launching of Brilliant Black Minds. And we surveyed over 300 Black software engineers across industry and HBCUs. And I believe almost over 50% of them had never taken a technical interview before, which really which really illuminates the access gap in a lot of ways. So as we had learned all these things as we're working with clients, scaling, and really obsessing about the equity of the technical interview, we had a lot of learnings around, like, well, we had a lot of exciting features. For example, you get redo opportunity with Karat, a part of the core product offer.
That's right.
And so you see, as like things like that, we have already kind of been leaning into, like, well, how do we obsess about giving people as many opportunities as possible, or to show the best version of themselves? And that really goes back to kind of closing the access gap as well, because there's Black software engineers have traditionally had an access gap across early exposure, which compounds into lack of network, which compounds into lack of ability to practice or have access to information that is valuable in accelerating your career. So we kind of saw all of that happening, and we also, in the early days, having seen that, we knew that there was a there with Brilliant Black Minds. So we really dove into like, what does it look like to support this community, and where are the problems? I think we tried to stay very humble in the sense of understanding what our domain expertise is. Our domain expertise is technical interviewing, and that specific piece. So when we thought of, well, how can we impact DEI through what we do best, you get to the practice interview platform, and through the
and that was my and that was my question. So coming up is that, so not only, so it's almost like a two-sided type business. So the one side is like the companies can leverage y'all, but then people could use you like a Leak Code, like a Hacker Rank, but it's not necessarily, I mean, I'm sure it's technical in nature, but not necessarily coding. It's more of just like the questions to kind of get through the technical interview process. Can people use you on that side too?
It's a great question. I would say, yes, you're accurate in saying that it's kind of there's a duality here. And on the cannabis side, obviously, we're really laser focused on Black software engineers, and specifically on the DEI aspect of our DEI initiative around closing that access gap, which has kind of been the overall focus. But yes, essentially, with the Brilliant Black Minds program, as an aspiring Black software engineer, we are essentially creating a place where you can practice from like your actual technical interviewing. You can practice your actual practice interviews. You get feedback post your interview, which
that's cool.
Is impossible to get in the marketplace.
Exactly.
So that has been one of the most exciting value propositions as a developer, is for you, like, look, I can go as a Black software engineer. Karat has created an infrastructure where I have a community of people that are like me who want to learn and grow together and develop.
Are you guys reaching out to universities for like mock interviews and things like that?
No, we work with a host of partnerships across academia, industry partnerships, which we have some really exciting ones coming in the door. But these ones would be akin to like Jobwell, Trabaja, synergetic communities who, the way I look at it is every developer needs their interviewing tech stack, needs their career tech stack, not necessarily their interviewing tech stack. And there are industry partners like Jobwell and other really amazing orgs, like, which all of you probably have heard of, like Inroads, Nesby, etc., who have really sparred out of the need to close the access gap from their own domain expertise. So what's exciting about Karat is we're very synergetic with that. They're filling a very unique value proposition for their community members, and they get to add our value proposition to that, which is like, hey, you're a part of this community. We're also partnering with Karat to unlock a practice technical interviewing platform for you. So when you're a developer, you start thinking, where do I get mock interviews and industry quality feedback that's going to allow me to A/B test and really hone in on what I need to be working on? Where do I go meet a community that looks like me? And so you kind of get to develop that stack and really close the playing field for
do you then, and I know you guys don't do sourcing, so I don't know how it works when it comes to proprietary, contact information or candidate information. If an individual is looking to be connected to a company that you guys are otherwise, getting candidates sourced to you, if I'm an aspiring, computer information systems, graduate that wants to get into development, I take practice tests, but I don't know how to get connected to companies that are hiring. Do you guys help make that connection? Do you guys have courses and coaching on getting connected to open opportunities?
This is a really exciting question, because I feel like you're you're leading me into the exciting things that I was telling Tyler that had me
did
busy back here at home base. But yes, essentially, kind of, I think when we started doing the Brilliant Black Minds program, a lot of what makes it special is that we are building together with the users who are most affected by the access gap. In that collaboration, they've been very loud and clear in saying that it doesn't matter how good I am at shooting free throws if I am never getting to the line.
Right.
So I think that really hammers home what you're saying and closing that gap. And that is something that we are uniquely obsessing over currently. Hey, on one side, we have amazing candidates who want a more critical path to opportunity, a more accelerated path to opportunity. And then on the other side, we have clients who are really excited about their DEI initiatives, and they are really excited about hiring amazing URM talent as well, and bringing them on board. So we are looking to create those opportunities for those users.
So
let's stay in touch.
Yeah. Last question as we wrap up here. Again, time flies when you're having fun. What's some exciting things coming up that you can talk about, or maybe obviously kind of your recent investment from a well-known tennis player who just retired?
Oh yeah. I think really I'd probably double down on kind of where Dan led me to just a minute ago, which is, first we were really, really obsessed about the platform itself, the why and the how and the feasibility of this. I think what we've learned, one of our biggest learnings so far has been just, this is much bigger than we anticipated in terms of the demand in the marketplace from Black software engineers, because the gap is just very evident by just the amount of users we've seen like flock to this program and product and essentially say like, I can't get this anywhere else. Or I can't find this anywhere else. So I think now we are what's really exciting about and what's to come soon, and I'll make sure to send you guys some links as we do the launch points start coming up, is really around closing the gap of opportunity. How do we bridge that opportunity gap? And really, as a Black software engineer, you get Karat as a place where you can develop, be with a community of like-minded individuals that are constantly up-leveling you and that you're also creating value for, and ultimately find your next opportunity in an accelerated fashion. Absolutely. So that is what's most exciting, because we're really breaking down some of those blocks that most software engineers as I think Tyler, as a recruiter, you would know, most software engineers and have just had to go through such a gauntlet in terms of the technical interviewing status quo. And they are very excited, especially Black software engineers, to have a more illuminated path to opportunity, and one that can be measured more accurately.
I love that. That's awesome. Cool. All right, man. Well, dude, thanks again for hanging out with us. Definitely keep us in the loop. Definitely keep us in the loop with anything exciting.
We'll do.
We've been saying this now for 2 years, and I think we're going to do it hopefully in the next 6 months. But just, our goal is to build more of a community. I mean, we've been at this for 2 years now, and we've had a lot of amazing speakers in different industries with different contacts. And so, definitely stay in touch. Any exciting news, we'd obviously love to promote it. And thanks again.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tag the Unicorn Finders on LinkedIn with any of your stuff. We'll share it around.
Absolutely. We'll do. And obviously, if you know any aspiring Black software engineers, or if any of you are out there watching, definitely come tap in and see why it is one of the most exciting developer programs probably in the marketplace right now. So come check it out and let's grow together.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks for saying. Appreciate it. See you guys.
Thanks all.